often see someone, a street person, a homeless person, who might be obviously having a conversation, an argument with nobody there. That's kind of my perception of schizophrenia. Is that on target, off target? Am I, set
Well,
me straight on that.
I would say that the person that you see on the street talking to their voices is likely unmedicated. They may be intoxicated. Um, a lot of people who are unmedicated tend to hide. They don't, the world is scary for them. Their symptoms are scary for them. They'd rather sit at home in their room with the blinds drawn than go out and about in the world.
Hmm.
Can someone with schizophrenia be on the streets talking to voices? Yes, but it's not common. And when they're, unless they're intoxicated. And then when they're stable and on meds, they, we talk in my groups about like, you're allowed to talk to your voices, but there will be social consequences. And if you don't want people being really uncomfortable around you, you might want to try not to do that.
Oh, tell me more about that. So, talk to your voices. You encourage people to have conversation with that voice. What am I saying?
No, I'm saying I encourage them not to talk to their voices in public,
Public.
Because of the social consequences. But if it makes them feel better to talk to their voices when they're at home alone, there's no harm being done. So, I don't see why not.
Okay, so is that a strategy to talk to the voice and say, I know you're not real, or I don't want to hear that right now, or some other coping mechanism?
Yes, for some people, that will diminish their voices. For some people, it will make it worse. So people have to experiment with the coping skills that work best with their illness.
Wow, what a learning process. It just sounds like it would be exhausting.
So we just watched a short clip from a full-length video. It was about 25 minutes, and it's from this program called Health Call Radio Hour. And the name of that program, that particular episode, was called Understanding Schizophrenia with clinical psychologist Lisa Cowley. Now, I made sure to capture the whole screen and information so that everyone can read it. So if you read it, you have some idea of what she's about. She's been a clinical psychologist for dealing with schizophrenia for over 20 years. And in this video, she talks about a lot of different stuff, like what people's behaviors are like at the onset, before the onset of schizophrenia, and or before the manifestation of it. And then she talks about some of the myths associated with schizophrenia, some of the treatment options, necessity of support, and and just she also has a high regard for people who she's worked with, who have had schizophrenia. So all the positive experiences, which I think is good. And when I do a search on YouTube for schizophrenia, and the videos pop up tend to all have the same general information. Like they talk about symptoms, they'll talk about medication, they'll talk about the support and how that's necessary, to talk about um the behaviors. They talk about, just they're all like the same thing. My guys, they're all the same thing, right? And there's not really many people out there that gives you real insight into schizophrenia, that really gives you a look in in the depths of it. I did come across one channel with I'm gonna post a link in there too. He talks about Carl Jung, and Carl Jung had a great understanding of schizophrenia, and it's from a channel called Nexus Void. So I'll post a link there. Great understanding of schizophrenia, and I believe Carl Jung experienced schizophrenia, and not only experienced it but came through it just like I did. Some of the things he said about schizophrenia is things I've said, like the metaphors he uses, or like I've used it, but because I've been there and I've come through it, and this is the difference between people who are more just the medical side of it and never really stepped across, and also not just been in it but come through it. is a different level of understanding. That's why like they'll just talk about the surface of it, all this the things that everybody sees, but never the thing that people don't see a lot of times, like the depths of it and how you got to navigate it. And I think the difference is where, and even people who've been have schizophrenia, like you see like myself and other people making videos, it's just a lot of largely talking about the symptoms, the things that's necessary for support in order to live with schizophrenia, you know what I mean, to manage it well and to do good with it and to live a fulfilled life. It's never really to come through conquering it, overcoming it, to really bring yourself to the top and to really subdue it. They never come with that because they've never really understood schizophrenia on that level. And that's where I think Carl Jung did, where Carl Jung, he didn't just go into psychosis, but he went through it and he had his eyes open, right? And that's a different thing for someone who don't have their eyes open, because one of the things that psychosis does is it shuts your eyes, right? And it moves you, it leads you around, not physically, metaphorically, right? And you don't pay attention to what's happening. You're so caught up in this fight or flight mode that you don't see the patterns. You don't see how it maneuvers you, how it tries to impose not just thoughts but feelings on you, how it tries to impose the anxiety on you, all these things, and the desires and again thoughts, all these things you're not watchful of and monitoring it, and then to not get pulled into this damn stream that's flowing, but to resist it and monitor it, and to kind of navigate it like that, and you come out on the other side. Because if you do that, you'll understand exactly how it works, right? When there's a thing where these people don't deal with. So which is why when it comes to the point of this video that I wanted to make, when she mentions about talking to the voices, and that being there being no harm in that, if like as long as you don't do that publicly, where there's going to be a societal consequence of that, because you're going to look crazy, people are going to be like, you know what I mean, like there's going to be that kind of consequence, right? So or she says more like, if you in a private place or whatnot, then it's, there's no harm in it. And I say this because I don't really know how Carl Jung would explain this part, but I don't agree with Carl Jung on everything. I think I get some I would argue some of this stuff right against it, but a lot of it I do agree with. But anyway, I think if when you don't understand what's happening, you will think that certain things, because it doesn't cause physical harm and you don't look like you're in distress or anything, that there's no harm to it. But let me ask you this. How many people who've talked to their voices has been led through schizophrenia and come out completely cured on the other side due to the voices navigating them through it? How many people have recovered by communicating with the voices? There's none from what I've seen, from what I've heard, right? So if there are, there's not very few. So what I'm saying is, if we cannot say that these people have done it and have come through and they're 100% good, how do we know there's no harm being done, right? How do we know that? How can we say there's no harm when the people who are communicating with the voices are still suffering from schizophrenia? Doesn't make any sense. Maybe there is harm being done. You just don't know it. You can't see it, right? People never ask, when you're talking to these voices, what are the intentions? The voice will tell you good stuff. What's the intention of the voices? Do you know? We can say, oh, the voices that are being mean to me have an intention in order to harm me psychologically. right? They degrade me. Maybe, you know, you lose your self-esteem. You want to isolate. You're afraid. You know, they all these things. But the voices that are speaking good to you and you're communicating with, oh, they make me feel good, right? So because of that, you take that as being harmless, right? Let me ask you this. Don't we tell children, our children, one of the great rules we tell them when they're young is don't talk to strangers. Why? Because, you know, we understand that strangers sometimes will talk to you good, but their intentions are not good, right? Strangers will give you a, hey, come here, I'll give you a lollipop, but their intentions are not good. It's to lead you astray. Strangers will talk to you in a good way in order to build trust, but inside their heart, their intentions, what you cannot see, the child cannot see, in their heart, with intentions, it is not good. It is to do you harm. That's why we say when adults, you go to a bar or a club, don't take drinks that doesn't have a cap on it. It has to be a bottle and must have a cap on it, right? Don't ingest certain substances from people, right? Have a buddy system, especially for ladies, you know, because people will come, they'll talk to you good, they'll present themselves in a good way, trustworthy way, but their intentions are not always good, and you will get harmed or could get harmed because you just listen to some nice words and then, you know, maybe they show you something nice and you decide to follow that rather than consider what their intentions may be, and then maybe you know, keep your guard up. Maybe I shouldn't engage with this person, but you know, it's a different reaction when you start to think and question the person's motivations, right? You're not going to just engage with them because you know it feels good, right? Sometimes something feels good, it doesn't make it right, right? And if you've been through some of these levels of schizophrenia, you'll get a lot of feelings that feels good. You know, some bad ones, but there's some that feels good, but you don't want to. Is the last thing you want to latch on to. You got to turn the frick away from them because they'll. It's not just thoughts and hallucination, vision. There are feelings, man, that you feel like you're something you're not. You feel you want to do something that you shouldn't do, and the feeling is good, right? Don't trust your feelings. Feelings are not your guide. Feelings will lead you to hell, right? They'll lead you to all kinds of madness following your feelings, right? And it's the same thing with these voices, right? And I've said this, the natural world is a shadow. It's a natural, a physical representation of a greater world, right? Where the voices, these things are existing, let's say, right? Because these voices, they all have their own identity, their own personality, their own selves. They're separate from you, right? They're not things that you imagine. They have their own will. They speak to you when they want, what they want to speak to you about, and they leave when they want. You don't command them. You understand? So if they have all that, maybe they have intentions of their own. And this is where, like I said, people who talk about schizophrenia don't go into these parts, into these waters. And it's the reason why a lot of times they keep struggling because everyone just want to speak on what the science is. And the science and what they can measure and cut and this and that, right? But when you get into this kind of waters, man, that stuff doesn't hold up. That vehicle ain't built for this level, right? It falls apart, right? And so that's why Carl Jung, he kind of saves some of his greatest thoughts for later on in what's called the Red Book, where he really touches on some things that people like. Had he touched on that in his career as a psychologist, psychiatrist, you know, he probably wouldn't have been taken seriously, right? Because there's a community that likes to present itself in a way that's rational and grounded in reason and this and that, to speak a certain, to be taken serious, you got to come in a way that appeals to them. So you got to present yourself, you got to wear a certain mask so that they can accept you. But if you were to really touch on some of the things you understand, and you will get, laughed at or shunned or whatever. And these are the things that I get into. Like, I step across, man, boundaries, man, because that's where you gain real insight, right? And a lot of people, they just stay on this in the safety of this stuff, but you'll never cross this waters in a way that brings you above and beyond schizophrenia if you just stay on this level. You never really understand it. Right. So when I say these voices might have, like, consider they have intentions, right? So when, just like how we'll teach the child not to talk to strangers, this is a strange voice, isn't it? It's a strange voice, right? It's a strange voice saying some things, offering us some candy, and we just taking candy and just following and chatting, holding its hand. Holding his hand. You see that image? You see those movies, and the man, talks to the kid, gives him candy, and grabs the kid's hand and leads the kid away into a vehicle. We never consider that, right? Maybe the harm is what you don't see, right? Because this thing never leads you out, right? Oh, the voices, I talk to my schizophrenia, and the voices lessen. Yeah, well, what else has increased? The voices lessen. As the hallucinations lessen, as a paranoia lesson. What else have you got been added to what you've been experiencing that you don't even realize? Right? May not realize it, so you're on medication. So maybe if you stop medicating, you don't realize what else you got, or why certain things are still are intensifying or still continuing. You just don't know how this works. So why am I going to engage in this thing, with this thing, not knowing what the heck it is, for one, what it wants, or what are the consequences, whether it's harmful or not? The fact remains that you're still suffering. So chances are it is doing something to you, and chances are it's not good. Right? Now, I know people, especially if you're more religious, or even some kind of spiritual, who believe in, spiritual guides, or, maybe you have, someone who might believe God or angels are talking to you or can talk to you in these manner. And listen, I believe in God too. I believe in, angels and stuff like that too. I've been talked to voices that said they were God. Been talked to voices that said they were angels, and oh man, they tell me all this stuff, make me, make you just want to trust them and lean on them, but they were not what they said they were. So especially if you're a Christian, you know what the Bible says. It says that Satan appears as an angel of light. And it also says, and this is the thing, it says that, I know some people may not, who are not to that faith, may not agree with this, or recognize this, but it says, you have to try every spirit to see whether they be of God. Isn't that something? It says try every spirit. So you do not trust a voice just because it says it's God. You do not trust a vision if it's God himself or Jesus himself appears to you. You do not just trust that because it says it so. You got to try it to see whether it be of God. So there's got to be something about it that comes in a way that is immutable. It's 100% proof, right? And if God's coming there, he knows exactly how it is to do that, right? And it's going to be something that's undeniable. And you will not be left confused. You will not be struggling with paranoia. You're not going to leave with anxiety. You're not going to leave with hallucinations and all these things and end up in a hospital. You're not, because God is not the author of confusion, right? And so if there's any of these voices that coming and they're talking to you, but yet you're suffering from paranoia, you're suffering from this, you're on medications, how the heck can that be a spiritual guide? How the heck can that be good? If it's a guide, it should be guiding you out from this thing. But yet, if it's a guide that's just entertaining you all your little jokes here and like, nah, man, they try to put that on me too, little jokes and making me want to laugh. No, no, do not engage. It's not a game. And they'll have you playing it like it's a game. They'll have you talking to them like it's a game, like it's almost like a romance relationship sometimes. It's cute, it's fuzzy. As the trap, it's you put those feelings on you, you know. But it's like good cop, bad cop. One will talk nice to you, the other one come and berate you and tell you how you're this and now you're that, and the other it would come and console you and tell you and comfort you. It's like, good cop, bad cop. What they do to the perp. One will come in there, they rough him up a little bit, and then the other one comes to be all understanding and this and that, and they'll be on your side seemingly, but both cops are working together towards the same end. You ever think about that with the voices? Maybe they're working together towards the same end, right? But we just, because we trust our ears and don't think beyond the surface of a thing, consider deeply, we don't gain anything. We stay in the same place forever, right? You have this lady 20 years treating schizophrenia, and she has these patients. How many patients, as she said, I'd ask her, how many patients leave there cured, right? Yet they're doing the same things, expecting different results. In that, someone says the definition of insanity, right? Same things, and yet they're trying to get through this, and you're telling them that it's okay to talk to the voices if it comforts you, if it feels okay. Yet you want to get recovered, and you've been talking to them for how long? Where has it gotten you? What insight has it gotten you? Right? If you're not gaining any insight how to get beyond it, how to recover yourself, restore yourself, what the hell good is that voice? It's useless as far as I'm concerned. Right. So anyway, that's my that's my take on this video, in this video. And that's just I listened to that and I just thought that was such a, and I listen, man, I don't like to make these videos on these experts who's been doing this for how many years, but it's like I gotta do it because nobody else is really um calling this out. Nobody else is really looking at this and the potential harm that this may cause, rather than just seeing it as oh, there's no physical thing, there's nothing we can see with our eyes that's out of the ordinary, that we have to be concerned about, rather than actually thinking about, but that's because people just think about this as a physical whatever thing, and so nobody really considers it, the links between all these different symptoms, right? And how you engage with one, you strengthen the other, or the others, right? We don't really consider those things. And so that's kind of why I gotta do this. And nothing taken from this lady. It's just my opinion. Other people are gonna still have different opinions. But I've been through it. I came through it. And if this thing was what it takes itself out to be, it'll help you guys get through it too. Those of you who are talking to it, where's the insight? Where's the freedom? Are we risen above it? It begs the question, right? So that's kind of why I had to talk on this, and hopefully, it makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, until next time, later.